Hello. Right. Okay, children, boys and girls, you need a piece of paper, maybe not necessarily this big, an A4 piece of paper. I'm hoping that you've all got one of those. You might need a pair of scissors later on. If you do, then obviously I'll let you know. First thing you need to do, okay, so here's the piece of paper. What you need to do is you need to fold this corner down to this edge. Okay, so this corner down to this edge. I'll do that now, and then I'll show you the result when I've done it. Right. So, oops. Are you all okay, by the way? Hope you're all not getting too bored. Hope you're all still managing to be kind to each other. And right, okay, so can you see that? How's that for, yeah. So as you can see, I've folded that corner down to that edge. Now, unfold it, okay? So now you may just be able to see, if I just get the angle right, yeah, it's probably better that way. You can now see that line that goes up there. Okay, now what you need to do is you need to get a pencil and put a mark just there. And I haven't got a pencil with me, so I'm just going to go and get one. So, pause. Haha, right, I'm back again. Is it still recording? Yes, it is. Right, okay, I've got my pencil, and so put a mark where that diagonal line hits this edge. So there's my mark. Can you see that? Yes, of course you can. Right, now what you've got to do is you've got to fold this over where the mark is. Okay, now I'll do it and then I'll show you the result, and then hopefully you'll get what I'm talking about. So there's the mark, fold it over and open up. Right, so now can you see where I've folded that over? And when you do this, boys and girls, obviously you must be really careful. So when you're folding the paper, make sure the paper folds exactly into the right place. If it's moving one way or the other, then it's going to be no good. Okay, so take care. Right, okay, so this is now that bit. What you should be left with is a square. So this part here, down here, along, up and along, that should be a square piece of paper. As I said, don't worry, my piece of paper is fairly big, but I'm doing it so that it makes it easy to show you. Also, my piece of paper is actually called cartridge paper, which is a bit stiffer than normal paper, so that doesn't matter either. Right, now when you fold it over, don't just fold it over with a fold like that. What you want to do is you need to fold it over so that this crease is as sharp as possible. So, and the only way you can do this really with the stuff that you've got at home is that you use your finger, and that's not a finger, you use your finger and your thumb and you put them together, and where the fingernails touch, that's where the paper's got to go, and you fold it and you swish it like that. If you want to, you can do it, can you see, look, I'm doing it now on the table, okay, and then open it up like this and then fold it the other way, and then fingernail or a thumbnail or something hard, and look at that, look how sharp that crease is. Okay, and then open it up. Right, okay, next, if you have a pair of scissors, then cut very carefully down this line. If you've got a pair of scissors. If you haven't got a pair of scissors, then, because if you folded this really well and you folded it backwards one way and then the other, what you should be able to do is just put it on a table and just make a little tear. Can you see? No, you can't, because Right, and you see there I've made a little tear. There we go. And then if you're very careful and you hold the paper with one hand and you pull with the other, then you can tear it and rip it, and it should put you back there. There we go. And it should tear in exactly the right place. Now again, there we go. So there we go. That was where the paper was. Ta-da! Now that's gone. That piece of paper, put that to one side. You don't need it anymore, but you never know when you might need a piece of paper like that. What you should be left with is a squared piece of paper, okay? And remember, squared piece of paper, all four sides exactly the same. Right, now we're going to need to do quite a lot of folding. So what I'll do is I'll fold a bit and then let you do it, and then I'll fold a bit more and let you do it. Okay, so the first thing is fold the paper in half. Fold the square exactly in half. So you can see the size of the paper. Fold it in half. Like this. There you go. Okay, fold it exactly in half. And then open it up, and you might be able to see, again, the light might not be very good, maybe this way. You might be able to see the fold line there. If you don't, it doesn't matter anyway. So we folded it, let me show you very slowly, there we go. So we fold it in half. Now what you do is you fold it in half the same way, okay? So we're going to fold this edge down to this edge. Okay, so once again, I will do it and then show you the result, and then it should be fairly straightforward. Now when you do these folds, you don't need to use the fingernail and thumbnail and all that sort of thing. Okay, so what I've got is I've now got the piece of paper folded in half and half again, which of course means quarters. So if we open it out, there we go. So you can now see that we've actually got 4 long strips of paper. Okay, that's good. Now, if you want to, you can pause the video now, or you can replay it a couple of minutes just to, you know, check, replay certain, you know what I mean. Anyway, okay, so if you're ready to carry on, then we can carry on. And now what we need to do is, so you've got the folds vertically. Now what we need to do is do exactly the same, but we need to do it horizontally. Okay, so again, actually if I fold it like this, so we need to fold it in half like that. Okay, now once again, it's much easier for me to do this on a desk or on a table, possibly even on a floor. If you've got a nice hard floor, laminate flooring, possibly wooden floor, that sort of thing. Okay, so there we go, we folded it in half the other way. All right, and then fold it rather in half once again. Okay, and right, so now we've got it like that. So if we open it out now, what we can see is we've got a piece of paper that's been folded in half and half again in one direction, and in half and half again in another direction. So what we've actually got are now 16 squares on the paper, and if I keep moving around at different angles, you might be able to see that there are lots of different squares. So we're aiming for 16 squares on that piece of paper. Okay then, boys and girls, so we got to the position where we've got a sheet of paper and it's now in 16 pieces. Okay, now what you need to do now is to mark out the edges of the squares which are going to make the cube. And if I start this off, okay, so you can see there in red, because what we're going to do is we're going to use some of these squares to make a cube. All right, so if I do this one and this one, okay, you see, and then this one, and then this one, go down here and along and up and up and along. Okay, so you've got that. It's sort of a cross. Well, it is a cross. It's a cross, but it's the horizontal bit is not in the middle. The horizontal bit is nearer to the top. Now, if you want to, you can put the cube, the squares rather. You can use different ones, and they should still make a cube when you put it all together. Some of them will make a cube and some of them won't, so it's kind of like as an experiment I put over to you, an experiment for you to decide which ones will make a cube and which ones won't. So this one will. Now if you put, let me just think about this, if you put this one, say, down here, this square, if you put that square down there and this square up here, then that will still make a cube, believe it or not. And there's all sorts of different arrangements. There aren't loads and loads, there aren't hundreds, there aren't even 10 or 20, but there are, you know, a few different arrangements you can do. Okay, the next bit is where you may need a pair of scissors. Okay, so I'm going to pause it and go off and get a pair of scissors, and now you can go and get a pair of scissors if you have one. Okay, so here's my pair of scissors, nice pair of scissors there. I've just thought a couple of things before we go ahead with this. There's an extra little bit that you need to mark on here. If you've got a different colour, if you've got a pen or a different colour pen or something like that, then that is quite useful, because what you've got to do is just put a mark in a few different places on the square. So can you see that in purple? Can you see I've put a mark there, and I'm going to put a line just there, and just there. All right, so those are marks there, and also we need one more here, I think. Oops. So we need a line just there. And the thing is that when you cut this out, what you've got to do is you've got to cut out around the edge of those lines, because those are going to be the bits which will help you to glue it all together, to stick it together. Okay, so I'm going to start cutting out now. Now it's important when you're cutting to make sure that you cut exactly on the folds. Okay, so those lines that you drew, those were just to give you an idea, but you've got to cut exactly on the folds, because the folds show you exactly where the cubes are, where the squares are. Okay, when you cut round the lines, let me just show you. Okay, so can you see there you've got a little shape there. That's actually called a trapezium. We might talk about trapezium shapes later on. And because you've got a nice good fold, there we go, that folds over. All right, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to pause the video so that I can cut round a bit more, because you don't need to see me cutting round. While I do this, you carry on cutting, and I'll see you on the other side. Right, well, there we have the finished, well, not the finished article obviously, but there we've got the this is called a net, of a cube. Now if we turn it around this way, you might be a bit more familiar with that. Okay, now these the bits that you did in a different colour, try and bend those forwards and backwards, because when you come to stick it all together, it's important if they are very, very nice, and if the creases, once again it's all about the creases, make sure that they are nice and tight, nice and sharp. Okay, and if you remember, we did those as well. So fold it one way and then fold it the other way. Okay. Now, I'm sure you've all done these sorts of things before. I'm sure you've all done them in maths, and maybe you've done them in other subjects where you've had to make a dice and stuff like that, but I'm fairly convinced that this will be the first time you've actually made it all completely yourself and without even using a ruler. Okay, now as well as these are the flappy bits, so as well as folding the flaps backwards and forwards, what I'm also doing is folding along these folds, and then the horizontal 2, 3. I'm folding backwards and forwards along there, because when you come to glue it all together, stick it all together, the better these folds are, the more likely you're going to have a fantastic cube. Okay, now I just need to go and get something else. One moment. Right, okay, still there, still hopefully still interested in this. Let's just move that back a bit. Okay, now the final bit, you do need some glue. Now I know that glue is not something that you're necessarily going to have at home. If you've got sellotape at home, then sellotape is something you could definitely use. If you haven't got either of those, then do you know what, you could still make the cube. You could still make this much of the cube, and then when you do come to school, we could glue it all together for you, so it would work out really, really well. Okay, so the final bit is to just put glue on the flaps, on the flappy bits. Also, it's probably a good idea, can you see I've got my net, but I've also got a piece of paper underneath, so that I don't put glue on the table, and then that would be a bad thing because you damage the table. When you put the glue on, put the glue just on to one flap at a time. Okay, so here is my glue going on. Okay, so I'll put glue on that flap. So what I'm going to do is now make sure that that flap goes on the inside, and I put those two together, use my finger and thumb, so you can see my finger on that side, and can you see my thumb? Yep, my thumb is on that side, and after a few seconds go down a little bit so that you're squeezing together the middle bit. So you do the top bit maybe 20 seconds, the middle bit for 20 seconds, actually let's fold you out of the way, and then the bottom bit for 20 seconds, okay, and then come back to the middle, and then come back to the top. Now I know I'm not doing it for 20 seconds, but it's just to speed things up a little amount. Okay, right, and then do the second tab. Now the order that you do the tabs, you will probably find that you may find rather that it works better in one order than in another order. So again, once again, 20 seconds on here. To be honest, whenever I've done this, it doesn't really matter which order you do it in, so I wouldn't worry too much. But the main thing when you're doing the tabs is you do have to do them one at a time. So don't go putting glue on every single one. and then try to put them together, because by the time you come to the last tab it will have all dried up and not work. Okay. Right, now as you can see, it's nearly finished. I'm actually going to leave it like this, so basically it's a box with a lid. If I were going to finish it off, then to make it easy for you, what I suggest, if you have got some sellotape, is just get a little bit of sellotape and just pop it on just there, because the problem is with a cube, when you've glued all the other bits together, when you put the lid back on, clearly you can't put your fingers on either side, because you can't put your fingers inside the box because the box is closed. Okay, right, so that is 3D shape. That is the first part of our 3D shape work. Okay, now just a few extra bits that I want to talk to you about. And when we're talking about 3D shapes, when we're talking about cubes and cuboids and things like this, there are a number of words that we've got to remember, or we've got to think about. The first is face. Okay, now the face is the flat shape that makes up each of the sides. Now with a cube, each flat shape, sorry, let me start again. With a cube, the sides are made up of squares. Okay, with a cuboid, the sides are made up of squares and rectangles. With a hexagonal prism, for example, which we will look at, the faces are made up of 2 hexagons and then some rectangles. Okay, so this is a face, and so is this, and so is this, and so is this. Okay, and so is this, and one more, so is this. Okay, so there are 6 faces. Okay, so for a cube, and a cuboid in fact, but anyway, for a cube there are 6 faces. So on that piece of paper, there are 6 faces. Okay, next thing on a cube, on any 3D shape, the next thing for us to talk about are edges. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to count the edges. Now, the edge is where 2 faces meet. So we've got a face here and a face here, and where they meet, this is the edge. Now I'm going to use my red pen, and I'm going to use my red pen and mark down where I see the edges, because otherwise we might get mixed up. So that's one edge. Okay, can you see that in red? Yes, you can. There we go. So that's one edge, and then 2, 3, 4. Let's do that again. Okay, so we can see that there are, that's a bit not very good. So we've got 4 faces just there. Okay, now let's see if we can find some more. Right, sorry, 4 edges. Oh, there's another one. So 5. Remember, these are edges. 6, 7, 8. So we've got 8 so far. And then, remember, we're talking about edges, and an edge is where 2 faces meet. So we've got 8 so far, and then 9, 10, okay, can you see there? And there's another one there, 11, and another one here, 12. And now if I look round, and you can have a look as well, you can tell me if I've missed any. Every single edge has now been marked. So edges, and I'll write this up here, cube. Okay, so, oops, not 12, not 6 rather. I got that wrong. I wrote 6 down because I was thinking of 6, but it's not 6, it's 12. Okay, so edges is 12. Okay, and then finally we have vertices. Now vertices are where edges meet. So vertices, if you like, you can say that vertices are corners or the pointy bits. Okay, now for vertices it's a bit more difficult to mark, so but what I can do is I can use my finger. So I've got one finger there, and I can put one finger there, and I can put one finger there, and I can put my thumb there. Now if I put that one there and that one there, okay, so this finger is not used, so that's 4 fingers on that hand, and each finger is touching a vertex. All right, so there's 4 so far. And then on this side, if I just close that, thumb, finger, finger, and finger. So on this side, with the hand that's got my ring on it, on this side there's that finger there that's just waggling away, not doing anything, but the other fingers are all touching a corner, a pointy bit, a vertex. Okay, so 4 on one side, 4 on the other, so that's 8. Okay, so just write this down, vertices. Okay, and that's how you write vertices, because there's more than one, and there are 8 of them. Now in the next 2 or 3 lessons we'll be making different 3D shapes, but with each shape we will count up these and we will see if we can work out if there's any connection between here. Okay, now you straight away rather, you might think, right, so you've got faces and edges, so maybe there's always twice as many edges as there are faces. Okay, that might be true, but you can't just make that decision based on one piece of evidence. You've got to do that on lots of others, so we shall see. Vertices, well, 8, 6, 8, well, it's an even number, as you may expect. It's not halfway between 6 and 12, because that would be 9, an odd number. So vertices is a bit more tricky. We shall have to see how that works. Before the next lesson, see if you can work out what the connection with these is going to be. Okay, so there we go. We've made a cube, and I hope you've enjoyed doing that. That's the end of the lesson. Please be careful when you're making these. Please be very, very careful if you are using scissors. If there are very, very young children about, make sure that they cannot get hold of the scissors. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. Take care, stay safe, be kind to yourself and the ones that you love. Bye-bye.